In 1853, right after the famine, the British government surveyed County Waterford. This was part of a project to survey the entire island of Ireland, mapping every parcel of land and recording the owner of the land and who leased and subleased. This was done for tax purposes, as the value of each parcel of land was assessed and a tax was levied on the tenants. The survey came to be known as Griffith's Valuation, after Richard Griffith, who ran the valuation office. It provides an important record of the population and where people lived, especially crucial since census records from between the famine and 1901 were destroyed in the Civil War. Griffith's valuation is organized down to the townland, which can range from 10 to 600 acres, but is usually about 300 acres. If you can find a record for an ancestor living in Ireland that names the townland where the family would have been living at the time of Griffith's valuation, then you can find the land that he lived on. But this is not easy. You're often lucky merely to know the county. Finding a parish within a county is sometimes possible, but that usually won't help you because there will usually be more than one person with the name you're looking for within a parish. But if you can find a record with the townland, then you can determine the exact plot of land that your ancestor lived on. In Pierce's case, I found a court record from 1853, which was the exact year that County Waterford was surveyed, which said that Pierce then lived in Carrickaverahain. And here you see that Carrickaverahain is very small, only 214 acres, and one of the residents is Pierce Flahavan, who we can then presume is Pierce's father, and note that Pierce named one of his sons, John, and his sister's great-grandfather, Philip. So note here that Philip leases plots 9 and 10, 24 acres of land, 3 acres of a lake, and he pays £10, 15 shillings in tax each year, which looks to be just about average for this townland. So now what researchers have done in the past few years is they've taken the survey maps from Griffith's valuation and they've overlaid them onto Google Earth. So what you're looking at here is a bird's eye or maybe a plane's eye view of this survey of Ireland. And as you zoom in, you can see the townland of Carrickaverahain. And if we zoom in some more, we can see plot number 9, Pierce's father's plot, and also plot number 10, which is part of a lake. You can see the indications of buildings. And then if you slide the slider bar in the top right corner from the historical map, which is overlaid onto the current Google Earth, you'll see the historical map fading away, and you can see that much is still the same. The rural parts of Ireland really have not changed much in the past 160 years. And then you pull the historical map off completely, and you can see what the property looks like now. And then if you pull up another browser and find this piece of land on the map of Google Earth, then you can take your guy here and put him down on the street. Now you have to do this in a separate browser. They haven't figured out yet how to put the street guy onto Google Earth with this historical map. And unfortunately, the street view doesn't include this east-west highway, what am I saying? This east-west street that runs right past the house. But if you take the guy and put him down on the street, this is what you will see. And if you go there, and I've included the Google Earth coordinates here, you can walk down this little road and you can check out the property where your great-great-great-grandfather Philip farmed. And who knows, there might still be some of the old buildings there, or maybe at least an old foundation or two. And you know what? I wouldn't even be surprised if there were still Flahavans or Flahavans living there. There was a thread on a genealogy network several years ago that mentioned that there were still Flahavans or Flahavans living in Carrickaverahain. If they are, they would probably be your 4th or 5th cousins. By the way, you might not find Carrickaverahain on a modern map. Look for Carrickaverahain. And if you do go there, I want you to walk up the road just a tiny bit because there is an old house or a barn structure or something which would have belonged to one of Pierce and Philip's neighbors. And this roof would have been made of thatch back in the 1800s. And this is the back of that house. So the Griffiths valuation map is from 1853. It's likely that Pierce got married around 1856 when he was about 30 years old. This is relatively old for marriage, but the famine delayed many marriages while people were focusing on their survival. So who did Pierce marry? Her name was Mary Murray, John and his sister's great-great-grandmother, and she lived about 2 miles away in the nearby townland of Monmouth. Her father's name was, oddly enough, also Pierce, which is pretty odd since Pierce was not a common name. It kind of makes me wonder if they might have been distantly related in some way. But in any case, we'll now quickly do the same thing for her family. Here we see that Pierce Murray leases plot number 2 on the map of Monmouth, and he farms 13 acres of land and pays £11, 15 shillings in taxes. And here that is on the map. And now you pull the historical map away for the current view of the property, and now we'll get the street view, and there are the Google Earth coordinates. And here you can see where they both lived on the same map. We know that Pierce and Mary had at least 4 children, probably several more than that. The ones we know about, Philip, John and his sister's great-grandfather, Catherine, Michael, and Margaret, all emigrated to Boston in the 1880s. They were part of one of the many post-famine waves of emigration that I spoke of before. Here is a picture of the ship that I believe Philip sailed on to get to America. It was called the City of Chester, and it arrived in May of 1880. And here is his ship passenger record. But in any case, back to Pierce in Ireland. I'd like to now talk a little bit about what Pierce and his family might have been like if you got to know him. Of course we'll never know, but it seems to me that he and the entire Flahavan clan were a fairly colorful bunch. I think they would have been well known to the local authorities. And the reason I say that is because I found numerous instances of Pierce and his father Philip, and other family members as well, being called before the petty sessions courts. The petty sessions were the lowest courts in 19th century Ireland. They covered civil matters as well as criminal. Anyone could end up before the magistrate in the petty sessions. On a typical day, the court might hear dozens of cases, and the courtroom would be hot, crowded, and loud. Even the legal professionals complained about the conditions in the courtrooms. The petty sessions were aptly named, dealing with the minor disputes and misdemeanors that make up ordinary human life. The petty sessions were presided over by a magistrate, a local landowner, usually a member of the Protestant upper class. I'm just going to look at some of these records. The first one is from Pierce, who's in this case the complainant in 1853, and he's suing an employer for unpaid wages. This is the record that actually tied him to Carrick-a-Verhain, which is how I found Philip and the land. This second one is Philip, and he's a defendant. This is 1853, and he's being accused of 15 goose trespassing on presumably his neighbor's land. And he's found guilty apparently and ordered to pay both the court costs and £2.06 to the complainant. This third one is basically a countersuit. Now Philip is suing the neighbor back, claiming that 9 turkeys of his neighbors have trespassed onto his property. You can see these matters get pretty petty. The next one is Pierce, who's the defendant. This is 1864, and he's being ordered to pay a debt that he owes. For goods sold, it says. And this one is Pierce, 1877. He's a defendant, and in this case, I hate these ones, he's being fined because his dog does not have a license. Which seems petty indeed. This one is also Pierce as a defendant, 1877, and this is, he's being sued for trespass of his pig. This is also 1877, Pierce again, and this is, his hog has trespassed. I wonder if it's the same one. Oh no, this is his, it's his boar. $3. Yeah. Next one, this is Pierce, 1883, and this is trespass of 2 goats and 1 ass. Oh, and by the way, Pierce now lives in Monmahog, presumably the property that Mary lived on. He's now living there as well. This is Philip, the father, 1883, ordered to pay a debt. This one is Pierce again, 1884, and he is drunk in public at Tremor. Drunk in a public place. £2 6 plus court costs. This is Pierce, 1884 again, and this is again an unlicensed dog. And this is Pierce again in 1884, and he's accused of being drunk on the public street at Tremor. Sunday, January 18, whatever that said. Oh, discharged with a caution. Okay. Guess they cut him some slack that time. Okay, this one is Pierce, 1890, and he is accused of leaving his employment before employment before the engagement was finished, and that one was settled. So that's it for the petty sessions. Now this last record is the 1901 census of Ireland, and you see Pierce here. He's age 74. That no there is says that he cannot read or write. He's a laborer. He's married, and County Waterford. He speaks Irish and English. And the interesting thing about this is it lists that he's married. It doesn't say he's widowed, which begs the question as to where is Mary at that time. That was in 1901. I believe she was a little younger than he was, but not significantly. So she would have been probably around 70 years old at the time. In any case, I looked for a long time for records of Mary's death, and I couldn't find anything that matched up to her exactly, in the sense that the ones that did match up weren't for Monmahog or any of the townlands around Monmahog. And the only ones that, there was one that matched up pretty perfectly, but she died at a workhouse. Now the workhouse, unlike in the United States during the early 20th century, the workhouses were not jails. They were actually, it was like the poorhouse. So it is possible that that is our Mary Flahavan. I also do have a record for, a transcription of a record for Pierce's death. He died on November 29th, 1906, and at the age of about 80. And the reporter on his death certificate was named Mary Foley, and I believe that was probably the married name of another daughter named Mary, obviously after her mother. So that is what we know about Pierce Flahavan. Thank you for your attention.